and the two of us decided that we were going to make some things and sell them at craft fairs. Welcome to the Wise Owl Knits podcast. Thanks for joining me today. I very much appreciate you being here. Today I'm wearing my beads tee. This is the fingering weight version. There will be another version in DK weight coming out soon, but the beads tee in fingering weight is available now on my website. I'm going to talk about the Cowboy Knit Along. The Cowboy Knit Along began on Labor Day and goes until Halloween, so there's still plenty of time for you to get in on it. I am almost done with my sweater, and this is my third version of the sweater, so you can tell I like it. We've got a Telegram group that you can join, and I will link that below. You can also participate on Instagram. If you're on Instagram, please use that hashtag, but also email me a copy of your picture so that I don't miss any. I don't totally trust the hashtags on Instagram to work the way they're supposed to. So if you send me a picture, that would be great. There are prizes that will be given out on once the knit along is finished, the end of October. So you've still got plenty of time to join, and I'd love for you to knit along with us, and I love to see all your finished objects. Next up is I have a wedding to go to the end of October, and I'm going to wear this dress. It's just a knit dress, really nothing too fancy, but it's got pockets, which, you know, everybody likes a dress with pockets. And the end of October, I don't know if it's going to be cold or if it's going to be as warm as it is now, and I may wear it just like that, but I've decided that I wanted to make myself something, a little shrug or a poncho to go along with it. And I'm using this yarn, which is a combination of Knitting McPurley Munich mohair, is the mohair, and then a fingering weight yarn that is from Alpaca with a Twist. And they're not in business anymore, but I've had this green yarn for a while. In fact, I did a couple of designs for them, and one of them was in this Socrates, but I really love the color, and I think they look pretty good together. So what I'm going to make, I'm pretty sure, is the rustic eyelet poncho, and it's a pattern that I did when I was still Cheryl Beckridge Knits rather than Wise Owl Knits, and just a lacy poncho to go with the sweater to cover up or to be a little warmer in case it is cold by then. So once I'm finished knitting, I'll update the pattern to Wise Owl Knits and the new yarns, and may change the name, but I'll get that out for everybody. I wanted to let you know how I got to this point in my knitting life and my design life. And it started a long time ago, back when I was a kid. So 55 years ago, probably, when I was about 10, my mom taught me how to knit, and I remember her giving me a little book that showed how to do it. My mom was left-handed, but you know, you use both hands when you're knitting, so I don't believe she knit any differently than I am knitting now. I know she threw her yarn, so she was an English knitter rather than a continental knitter. I am also pretty sure that she taught herself, and you know, maybe she learned when she was a child. That's one of those things I would love to be able to ask her, but she died when I was in my late 30s, so I can't ask her now. Darn it. You know, I still come up with things after all this time, because she's been gone quite a while now, but I would love to ask her some of these questions that I didn't think about asking her then, and that wouldn't have been relevant to my life at the point when she was still alive. But she taught me how to knit, and I knit for a while. I crocheted for a while. I did embroidery, cross stitch. Then I would make myself something on the sewing machine. So I was always involved in something crafty, but I would jump from thing to thing. And in fact, one time I crocheted my grandmother an Afghan, and it wasn't granny squares, it was granny stripes. And I worked on it forever. I had to go buy more yarn because it wasn't big enough. And it was an orange stripe and a brown stripe. And if you looked at our house growing up, the furniture that we had and the colors my mother liked, it would have went perfectly in our house. But I gave it to my grandmother, whose decor was quite different from our house. She had a creamy white sofa, but she used to put those plastic bubbles on when we came around so that I kind of a slip cover over the couch so that we wouldn't get our couch dirty. But she had lots of pastels and blues. And what made me think she would want an orange and brown Afghan? Who knows? I was totally oblivious even after I gave it to her. I go through a lot of my life being oblivious to things, and then later on I think, now why would I have given her that? Those were not her colors at all. But anyway, she was very gracious. It was always out when we came to visit, and we lived a couple hours away. So we weren't just dropping over anytime. She always knew when we were coming. So I did that. When I was first married, I made myself a sweater out of some cotton yarn that ended up, I'm sure I didn't do a swatch. I'm sure I didn't use the yarn that the pattern called for, but I had just bought some pattern at a craft store and bought some yarn that I liked the colors of. I probably didn't look at the gauge or the size, needle size or anything. But anyway, I made a sweater. It didn't fit. Surprise, it was huge. It was way too big. And I think I stuck that in the Goodwill pile and maybe wore it once or twice, but it was just way too big. And so then I put away my knitting needles for a while. I thought, that's probably not for me. Obviously, I can't make a sweater that fits, so I'll just go on and do some other things. And then I became a young mother, and we're a busy young family. Kids are in school and doing all kinds of things. So I didn't knit anymore for a while. So fast forward about 15 years, and I decided that I wanted a poncho. And, I do know how to knit, so I could probably make one myself. I had a neighbor who was knitting a lot, so she took me to a yarn store, and I was just amazed at what was at the yarn store now. And I had been to craft stores, but I hadn't been to a real local yarn store. And there was a really large store that's still here in Indianapolis, Mass Avenue Knits. And we went there, and my mind was blown. There were so many different choices and so many yarns that I hadn't seen before. And this was right in the heyday of novelty yarns, so lots of eyelash yarns and big furry acrylic yarns and all kinds of things. So I got some yarn, made myself a poncho, and then I just kept going. I took another friend of mine with me to the yarn store, and we decided to sign up for a class. I thought, I do know how to knit, and a poncho, there's not much fitting involved, so that worked out fine. But I thought, if I'm going to knit myself a sweater, I need to know what I'm doing. So we signed up for a basic sweater class and made that, and just kept going and going. And I started just making all kinds of hats and scarves and littler things. And my original friend who had took me to the yarn store the first time was still knitting, and the two of us decided that we were going to make some things and sell them at craft fairs. And you know how that goes. You can't sell your items for what you have in them, or at best you're barely going to break even. But we had fun doing that for a couple of years, and we um, met some very nice people doing that, and got some good experience, like retail experience, and just, it was fun. It was fun to do. It didn't end up being profitable, and probably barely broke even, if that. So we did that for a while, and then we decided that really wasn't worth our time. And I, again, just kept knitting. And as I was knitting, I was trying to figure out a way that I could make a business out of this, whether it's selling items online or some other way. But I just kept thinking about what I could do to make a business out of knitting because I really liked knitting. And as I was thinking about it, I realized that every time I knit a pattern, I changed something. Either I used a different yarn, or I changed the neckline, or changed one thing or the other. And I got to thinking maybe I could write a pattern. So writing a pattern from scratch is a little bit different than just changing an element of the pattern, but I kind of taught myself how to do it. And I looked at what other people were doing, and there were people that shared spreadsheets of how they changed the pattern into the different sizes. And I kind of just learned as I went by gleaning things from other people that were willing to share and just trying it on my own. So I started writing patterns, and I was pretty bad at it at the beginning. I think I'm pretty decent at it now. Um, that's how I got to the point where I'm at now, where I can come up with a concept in my head, figure out what yarn I want to use, get the gauge, and write it all out and grade it out to the different sizes. I'm very happy that now I have the opportunity to do this full time and not just as a side gig. So hopefully you'll see more and more coming out at a little bit faster rate than I could do it when I was doing it as a weekends and evening job rather than a full-time job. In the midst of learning how to design and knitting all the time, I suddenly came to the realization that when I was in high school, my mom asked if she could knit me a sweater, and she let me pick out the pattern, which I did. And she made this beautiful Aran sweater. Fisherman's knit sweater is what she called it. And I picked it out. I don't ever remember her doing cables before, but she did it for me, and I'm just so appreciative that I have this, that I never gave it away, because I am not a person that really gets attached to objects, but I just so treasure this now because I didn't realize it at the time. This was probably way above anything that she had done. I don't remember any other cable sweaters, and it did take her a while to do it, but it's beautiful, and I'm so glad that I had it. But again, that was a point of my being oblivious to other things that were going on and just wrapped up in myself. And I was actually knit worthy because I loved it, but I didn't have any appreciation of how much time and effort on her part that it took. And I'm just really grateful that I have it now. Thanks, Mom. Thank you so much for watching. If you like what you saw today, please hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. I'd love to send you notifications every time a new episode comes out, and if you hit that notification bell, you'll get that. And here's another video I think you'll enjoy.